How's it going, everyone? It is I, Anime Outlet, and this is part 3 of What If Deku Had Kaio Ken. And now, before I start this What If off, I would like to ask all of you to put your What If suggestions down in the comments section below. That's if YouTube just decided not to turn off my comments randomly. I'm still searching for an answer to why my comments keep randomly just being turned off. And now, let's begin. Hello, class. I'm your new hero teacher. As the entire class would look on in shock, there, standing before them, was the number one hero, All Might. Many of the class would scream in excitement, while others would just stand there wondering what was going to happen over the next couple months, as they were just in complete shock. Izuku, however, he kind of forgot about All Might. The only people he really had to look up to were Goku and King Kai. So those basically filled the role that All Might had during Izuku's early childhood. So Izuku would see All Might and would sort of vaguely remember who he was, but he really just didn't seem as amazing as someone like Goku was. So Izuku would just be standing there, the only one who really wasn't excited at all, while the rest of the class was all standing there just jumping out of their seats in joy. So today, class, All Might would start, we are going to be doing a heroes versus villains test. Now, how this is going to work, there's going to be two teams inside of a building. One team is going to be the villains and the other is going to be the heroes. These teams will be made up of two people. So that means there's going to be a number of these teams in the class, and only one group will go at a time, just so you all can watch the first group or the next group after that and hopefully learn from their experience or learn how to better do this test. So, how this is going to work. The hero team is going to have to wait 5 minutes outside of the building while the villain team places a specially made device up wherever they want. They have to hide it in 5 minutes. And then, once I yell go over the speakers, the hero team will have 15 minutes to either touch the device or capture both of the villains, and that is how they can win. Or the villains can win by either dragging out the time and the clock stops, or they can capture both of the heroes. And so the first two teams will be Izuku and Todoroki as a team, and now Bakugo and, Mineta as a team, All Might would say, as they would then be told how they have their hero costumes right over there. Please go down to the locker rooms, put them on, and then you'll have 20 minutes to put your hero costumes on and make it to the designated area for your team to start the test. So all of that would go according to plan, as Bakugo and Mineta would end up walking into the building before hiding the bomb. And as soon as All Might would tell the heroes that they can walk into the building, Bakugo would immediately tell Mineta to stay right by the bomb, as he would end up just rushing out. Now, the device was in the shape of a bomb. It sort of looked like a bomb, but it really just was a papier-mâché device that the support course had made. It was their first assignment, so it kind of was falling apart. It was many of the support course classes' first time using papier-mâché, so they really had no clue what they were doing. So Mineta would just be sitting there with all this glue and stuff on his hands as Bakugo was rushing off, hoping to find where someone was. So as Izuku and Todoroki would turn the corner, Bakugo would be right there, yelling, "I finally found you! You're gonna die, Izuku," Bakugo would say, before trying to send an explosion towards Izuku. However, Izuku would easily dodge this. However, Bakugo would rotate his hand before sending a ki blast right towards Todoroki. As Todoroki, this ki blast would hit him, sending him flying back into a wall. As Todoroki would slam into a wall, as Izuku would notice that Todoroki had been knocked out by a head hit right to the wall behind him. So Izuku would now be staring face to face with Bakugo, who was now standing in front of him. So, this is it, Bakugo. A rematch. I'm guessing you've been waiting for this for a long while. Oh, why, of course I have, Izuku. I even followed you and Todoroki, and I've spent weeks mastering this stupid art of ki you've been teaching him. I think my ki is thousands times better as yours. As Izuku would then just laugh. Sure, Bakugo, sure. Why don't you give me your best attack? As Bakugo would then rush right at Izuku before sending a ki blast barreling towards Izuku's head. However, with a single flick of his finger, this ki blast would go straight into a wall, as Izuku would then start to laugh. Oh, please, Bakugo, your ki blast could barely even break this wall. I don't even see a dent in it. You only knocked out Todoroki because his head hit the wall. Plus, you only shocked him so he wasn't able to dodge right out of the way. So, your art of ki is quite weak. I would suggest it's possibly because of those two quirks that you have. The quirk you were born with, and the one All Might gave you. It possibly could have even weakened your ki potential even further. What? How the hell do you know about my quirk from All Might? You think I'm so stupid? Both your and All Might's quirks have the exact same level and energy as another one. As Izuku would go on to explain how both Bakugo and All Might's quirks had basically the exact same amount of ki. See, each quirk holds a very tiny amount of ki within it, and each quirk has a different amount of ki. The weaker the quirk, the stronger the ki someone's going to have. While someone like Bakugo, who has two amazingly powerful quirks, they're going to be super weak levels of ki. And with Izuku, he can sense how much ki Bakugo's explosion quirk is and how much ki his one-for-all quirk is, because they are both separate. While someone like Todoroki, Izuku could only sense one thing or one quirk of ki within him, and that's because his half-and-half quirk is a half-and-half quirk, not two separate quirks. So Izuku would realize that Bakugo, say for example, the level of ki on one for all is 1, and All Might also has a level of ki of 1 for his quirk. So Izuku would easily be able to notice that Bakugo has the exact same quirk as All Might. So as Bakugo and even All Might would be standing there in shock, the entire class also standing there in shock, just wondering, wait, Bakugo has All Might's quirk? All Might gave Bakugo a quirk? Is Bakugo All Might's son? How does that work? As Izuku would jump right towards Bakugo, going for a punch. Bakugo would barely be able to dodge out of the way. However, Izuku would then twist his hand backwards, grabbing onto a wall before jumping right back at Bakugo. As Izuku would purposely miss, as Bakugo would then start laughing. I didn't even have to dodge that. Your aim is horrible, Izuku. Maybe you need some more practice. As Izuku would then look right into Bakugo's eyes before yelling back at him, maybe you should shut your mouth before you start bragging. As all of a sudden Bakugo would look back to see Izuku barreling right towards him, as both of Izuku's hands would go wide behind his body before slamming down into Bakugo's head. As Bakugo would then start to hear ringing in his ears before passing out. As Izuku would ask All Might, who was still listening, how much time he had left. All Might would say that he has exactly 5 minutes before the 15-minute timer was up. So Izuku would tie down Bakugo and would carry him along with Todoroki up to the final floor, where he would see Mineta still struggling to take all of the glue off of his hands. As Izuku would run right towards Mineta, who would flinch as he had already seen the power of Izuku, having been a victim of it, being on the first day of school, so he would flinch out of the way, as Izuku would then easily touch the bomb, giving his team the victory, as All Might would congratulate them before he would tell them that they should now bring it back, both Bakugo and Todoroki, back to the main area and could then take them back to Recovery Girl. As Izuku would do that, as he would then walk back to the area. Once all of the classmates had finished their test, All Might would ask to speak with Izuku in private, and so they would end up speaking. How did you know about Bakugo having my quirk? Didn't you hear me explain it, All Might? I said that both you and Bakugo have the exact same level of ki within the quirks that you have. However, I could sense 2 quirks within Bakugo, and one just happened to have the same level as you. So I put 2 and 2 together, and I figured both of you have the exact same quirk. At least Bakugo is one of them, close to yours. As All Might would nod his head, still rather confused about all this key business. So he would end up dismissing Izuku, as All Might would rush to Nezu's office, as Nezu would end up asking if he trusts Izuku, as Nezu would say, somewhat, why do you ask? He knows about my quirk and how I passed it down to Katsuki Bakugo. What? Nezu would say in shock. Yes, that's exactly what I thought. How could he know about that? Yes, that is rather confusing. You don't think he's a... Well, of course I think that. Of course I think he's one of All For One's offspring or something like that. One of his disciples. Someone that All For One sent here to kill me or someone else. Or bring down this school. Well, it was quite strange how he just showed up. But how he showed up does match just his level of power and everything else. How his story matches up with how and why he showed up. So I don't really think he's lying too much. You think he's lying? Well, I think he's lying about some parts. It just seems too strange that he met some very tall person that then sent him down a road that was a snake, that he then found a planet with two crazy strong people that didn't have quirks but were still stronger than anyone on this planet. It is quite strange. However, I do remember hearing stories about something called Ki and a very powerful spiky-haired warrior. I do remember something like that, but he did have a transformation that turned his hair golden. We have yet to see that from Izuku here. We should possibly wait and just see how something could happen here. All Might would nod his head as he would end up walking away. Now a couple weeks would pass as we see the classmates of Class 1A on a bus driving to the USJ, or the Unforeseen Simulation Joint. When they would arrive, 13, the hero, would greet them and would then explain to them what they will be doing, as they would all walk through the doors wearing their hero costumes to see just a massive open area with multiple different areas, such as a fire zone, a flood zone, a wind zone, and an earthquake zone that all just stuck right out to them, as they would all look on in shock just at how massive this place looked. It looked so much smaller from the outside, but now it looks huge on the inside. So Izuku would end up staring down at the middle, sensing something was about to go wrong. And sure enough, thousands of different keys would end up being sensed by Izuku, as he would end up seeing a massive purple portal accumulate right in the center, right by the fountain, as hundreds of villains would end up stepping out of this portal, and one would then step out as Izuku would look towards it. It had a very low amount of ki, the lowest out of everyone, and this would tell Izuku that this had the strongest quirk, as Izuku would then look over towards Aizawa and would tell him to watch out for the big purple bird-looking thing, as it has the strongest quirk out of everyone there. All the other ones are pretty weak compared to it. Aizawa would nod his head before jumping down the stairs and would then start to fight all of the villains there, as Shigaraki would then look over towards Kurogiri and would nod his head, as Kurogiri would create a portal right under all of the students, scattering them across the different zones, as a few other students would end up remaining at the top of the stairs, as Ida would end up trying to run out of the doors, but would end up being stopped by another purple portal standing in its way. So Izuku would end up landing in the water zone with Tsuyu Asui and Mineta, as Izuku would see just all of these villains in the water, as Izuku would notice he was in the flood zone. Moments later, another person would then fall from the sky who Izuku was easily able to catch. This would be Todoroki, as Izuku would ask Todoroki if he can freeze over the lake, which Todoroki would answer as no problem, as he would do this as all of the villains would end up being trapped under this ice. However, Todoroki would tell them to be careful, as it was severely weak ice, and and he couldn't really make it too solid, as there was only a thin sheet of ice above it, so if they were going to do that, then they had to be very careful, as Todoroki just did it fast instead of worrying about the quality of the ice. Rather, he had to think about quantity. So Izuku would end up walking over this ice, but it would end up taking a few moments. So when he would end up making it to the other side, he would end up seeing his teacher, Aizawa, being slammed down into the ground by the Nomu, as Izuku would end up looking up towards the Nomu, who would then look over towards Izuku, before he would appear right in front of Izuku, punching him across the face, sending him barreling, flying towards the other way, as Izuku would then crash into the stairs, as Izuku would then look back up, thinking that this was the hardest thing he's fought since he's fought Goku, so he would then smile before cracking his knuckles, before flying right back at the Nomu, headbutting it right into the Nomu's stomach, as this would then send flying back before it would land on its 2 feet and would start to run right back at Izuku, as Izuku would throw a punch, which would then be met by a Nomu punch, as the Nomu would continue on punching or even throwing kicks, which would all be met by either a block or another Izuku attack, as Izuku would then jump back, deciding it was finally time to stop playing games, as he would be wearing the exact gi that Goku had worn. I mean, it wasn't the exact one, but it did look quite like it. And so, much like Goku did in the tournament, he would end up taking off his weight in his boots and just the things he wore around his wrists, as massive clouds of smoke would end up flying up, as Izuku would then start to hop around, now moving a lot faster. And so when the Nomu would jump at him going for a punch, Izuku would easily be able to dodge, as Izuku would then start to focus his energy before going into Kaioken times 2, as a red aura would start to go around Izuku, as Izuku would end up jumping right at the Nomu, only taking one punch for the Nomu to be sent flying backwards, as Izuku would then instantly go out of Kaioken times 2 and would see the Nomu struggling to get up, as Izuku would create a Keyblade before slicing the Nomu's head clean off, as the Nomu would then fall limp, as Izuku would look on to see Shigaraki in complete shock before hopping through one of Kurogiri's portals. And that's where I'm going to leave part 3 of What If Deku Had Kaioken off. I thank you all for watching. Remember, I would like to thank Dobnushi for making the thumbnails for this series. Also, please put your what if suggestions down in the comments section below if the comments aren't turned off, because for some strange reason YouTube or some strange power is turning my comments off randomly. I'm still searching for an answer on why that is. So I thank you all for watching once again, and goodbye.